let's move on to guest number 2. Good morning, Morag. How are you?
Morning. Yes, good, thank you. Just fresh off a team call, so that's why I have my water with me, just in case.
I am terribly sorry to interrupt your team meeting.
Oh no, it's all right. It's all right. I was happy to make my excuses.
Well, you have to thank your colleagues for allowing you some of that time. So thank you also for helping us launch this mini program for Durham-based retailers. And the reason you're here, they all know because I did an introduction earlier, is to help us essentially reconnect with Amazon Marketplace, maybe from a trading perspective as opposed from a shopping perspective. You are the head of operations at Castle Arts, also known as Castle Arts Supplies. Can you give us a quick overview of what you do and what kind of customers you look after?
Yeah, sure. So Castle Arts is predominantly sells to consumers, direct to consumers. So it's we sort of touch and look at B2B opportunities, but primarily our customers are all, you know, artists around the world, around the globe, actually, because of our sales through Amazon. And we're very much about sort of taking creative people from almost sort of potentially on a journey with us. So it's become a lot less about the products, and it's increasingly about that journey and about the customer's experience with us. So we're adding value. That's why I'll touch on this later, but we're no longer Castle Arts Supplies officially, we are Castle Arts. And we dropped the supplies because we realized as a business that customers wanted a bit more. So we actually provide tutorials. We're working on video content to help people get the very most out of our products, but also see their, you know, be able to realize their creative visions and create them and enjoy all of the benefits that being creative affords us.
I can only imagine that it really helps all of you when you have that clear vision and that clear image of, you know, the journey of your customers and the role you have to play on that to come up with good ideas for that customer experience. Because when we started our session this morning, I talked about this idea of, you know, don't allow the platforms to get in the way of providing an amazing customer service. But that comes from the point of view of, you know, your customers reasonably well, and you come up with new ideas and you reinvent yourselves. And it's almost like, you know, in a physical sense, if I go to a store and it's the same layout and the same product and nothing's changed after 3-6 months, maybe I'm thinking that there's a disconnect here.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things that's been incredibly important for us, and one of the challenges on Amazon, is actually getting to know your customers. Because, and again, I'll probably touch on this later on, one of the challenges that you have is you don't actually have an awful lot of access to customer data. It's all encrypted and controlled and owned by Amazon. So the way that we've got to know our customers is over a long period of time, and really, really listening to the feedback and the reviews, what people were saying, and becoming known, interestingly, as a business out there, that we separate ourselves from our competitors. People, our audience have actually noticed that we do actually change our products, we improve our products based on their feedback, and that's incredibly powerful in terms of an engagement piece with your customers. So yeah, it's been a pivotal thing for our business.
Thank you very much. What I'm going to do then, I hope you don't mind, I'm going to pretend to be a shopper. I'm going to go on Amazon.
Sure thing.
And then, and that's not too actually kind of tricky or whatever, it's just that I'm generally interested in what you guys do. So you should find that has opened my browser.
Yeah, I see it.
Yeah, on Amazon. I've put the term Castle Arts Supplies because that's the one that stuck to mind. I know that, you know, you're changing. And then I'm just going to increase the size of the screen just for me. I mean, I have to say, you know, in terms of, so these are obviously yours because I recognize the name here, but I'm going to go to this one here. And something that I'm really taken of is, so of course you called Castle Arts, but you've gone all the way in terms of some of the illustrations. Looks brilliant. I love it. And is there almost like a, you know, I'm going to call them brand guidelines, where some of them have got, I would call them characters, others have got scenes. Have you come up with rules about what to apply to which product?
Well, this was actually interesting because our personal, you know, our business's experience was we've almost worked backwards, being brutally honest. You know, we've had to actually do a lot of work to understand what our brand actually means to us. And just in the last year or so, because of production lead times and artwork, etc., it's been in the pipeline for a couple of years. But in terms of actually the customers starting to see this new brand evolve, it's been over the last year. So that was actually quite a logistical challenge on Amazon, transitioning from the old brand across to the new. But this actually came from the authenticity around Castle Arts. So actually now what we've got on every single product is an original piece of artwork. So I think that really speaks to where we're coming from in terms of being able to act as kind of a guide, if you like, for our customers. So they can see and be inspired by the artwork on the front of all of our products, but it's actually created with the product that's within the particular art supply that you purchase. So the watercolor image that you see there, the kind of the horse that has just disappeared, is created in watercolor pencils. The knight that you see there is created in acrylics. So it's very authentic, genuine, and of course because of the castle name, it kind of all went back to this sort of medieval theme. So our core range is medieval themed. And then the ones that we first saw there before is us actually testing the market for genre specific products. So we're testing to see whether or not there's an appetite for landscape art, seascape, perhaps for artists themselves, Cezanne, Kandinsky. So, but the core range is all medieval themed and ties back to the castle. So we want to be as authentic as we possibly can.
That's great. And I think maybe there's a lesson for all of us in there, which is about this idea of that takes time to discover who you are,
yeah,
and to be patient, but also to not hesitate to make that move towards, because I came across, your company a few years ago then, because again, I'm not your ideal customer. I've not obviously got involved. And then when I look at it now, I can see the leap forward. It creates a sense of identity, creates a sense of uniqueness. I wonder as well whether it plays to, obviously many of your artists, will have some aspiration to run storytelling, and particularly that kind of medieval times, but also the US market, because it feels, maybe I'm wrong, but it feels British as well, that kind of, I wonder that plays to the market as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's difficult to analyze that again because of this lack of actual data. But yeah, I mean, I think it's commonly known that certainly the USA market love the history around castles and that sort of side of the British culture. So it certainly played its part. And actually what's incredibly interesting is that we actually have a resident artist, and he actually has a gallery in a castle. So we are about as genuine as we are the real deal, we actually, this work is created by a fantastic fine artist who we work with. So there's a lot coming from Castle Arts.
Super. Listen, I hope you don't mind, but I want to go straight into talking about Amazon from a trader's point of view. So
sure.
Many of us, in a room today, virtual room, our lovely attendees and so on, will have shopped on Amazon. So we're familiar with that interface, but what's on the other side? Now, you very kindly sent me some visuals. What I'm going to do is I'm going to bring them on screen, and you can use them as prompts to let us know a bit more about and give us some insight into what it's like. So I know that you've kind of put together a potted biography of the business, probably because you've forgotten more than you remember.
Absolutely. Yeah, so I just thought it was it's actually really interesting, because if you see that first point there, I think potentially the delegates that are listening to this are wondering whether or not it is possible to be successful on Amazon, and I think our story certainly proves that it is. So to see and to consider that we started 6 years ago just selling on Amazon USA, so one marketplace with one product. That's how it all started. So it wasn't as fancy as it is now. Obviously, there would have been a lot of work. I wasn't with the business at this time, but there would have been a lot of work in terms of research and all of that business stuff that you do before you consider a venture that went into prior to this. But that's the first key highlight. So it was 2 years later when the first full-time employee joined the business, and that was me. Very much because the business had flourished quite quickly, quicker than anticipated. and needed somebody full-time, dedicated, hitting the SLAs, monitoring all of the listings, a lot of housekeeping, making sure everything looked right, etc. And then 2 years later, my role had changed within the business. I was much more heavily involved in the inventory and the logistical side of the planning side of the business. So we actually set up a dedicated customer service team. So I think you mentioned customer service before, and it's, it goes without saying, it's crucial. So now, 6 years later, we've got 30 products on sale. They're sold currently in 5 Amazon marketplaces, soon to be 7. We're launching in Canada and Holland soon. We mentioned the rebrand, so we look entirely different. We've discovered who we are over this time. So at the moment, the effort is very much about maintaining and growing on Amazon, but simultaneously working on our own sales channels. So we'll be launching a Shopify platform very soon. And we're now actually a team of 12. So it's doable. But, there's a lot of hard work goes into it.
And having met, obviously, the founders of Castle Arts many years ago, probably at the time of 2014-15, it feels, that you've got to hold your nerves, be patient, and kind of stick to some of those rules. So thanks for sharing that with us.
Yeah.
So these are some of your thoughts around Amazon. Do you want to run us through that?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, I just thought you're sitting there contemplating why Amazon, and let's just run through it. It is the top e-commerce platform, so it clearly offers huge opportunities for businesses. Just look at that, $14.5 billion US net sales in the UK, 2018. So there's a massive market there. There's lots of opportunity. So incredibly attractive. Amazon, as you can see from what I sort of just shared there about our journey, they do make it quite easy for you to launch across multiple countries. And it's actually as easy as a tick box to say that, yes, you actually want them to duplicate your listings across marketplaces and share your inventory for you. So they do make it super easy, but that doesn't mean that you don't have to be ready for that. They provide you with lots of helpful tools and tips to optimize your shop. Because clearly the better you do, the better Amazon does.
Is that sorry to interrupt, is that in the shape of video tutorials, guides you can download? How does it work?
Yeah, there is. It's also kind of like plug and play programs, things like that. So for example, there's a program to enhance your listing called A+. I'm not sure if you have to meet certain criteria actually to have that. I think you have to be brand registered, which is another program that they run to give you more ownership over your listings and your shop. But yeah, they give you lots of different resources. I think there are videos, and certainly if there aren't videos on Amazon, there's a plethora of information out there from professional sellers and people who will happily share and help you with your kind of making your listings look as attractive as possible.
It's interesting where, back in the days, what I've said, where you can Google it, now people say just go on YouTube.
Yeah,
it's becoming another go-to place, and there's some truth in that.
Yeah, absolutely. There's almost, to some extent, too much information, because you could just research and research and research, but it's very important to be able to do that. Yeah, and the final point is that obviously Amazon's growing. There's no signs of stopping. COVID-19 has just shown how much people rely on online platforms. So yeah, but I'm going to counter all of that with this, however. Amazon is incredibly competitive. So you've got to be prepared to do all of the legwork behind the scenes to understand that sometimes quite technical steps, sometimes very easy things to enhance your visibility, and then not just your visibility, but how well your listing actually converts and performs. So there's, you can utilize split testing, all sorts of different things, and I would highly recommend that. But there's over 1 million third-party sellers join annually, which is incredible when you stop to think about it, that they all want to be on board. So that's just to give the audience a sense of, how much opportunity there is, but certainly how much challenge there is too. And Amazon is extensive with its rules and regulations that you need to understand and you need to adhere to. And they're not static, they change. So if you want to be successful, there certainly has to be an appetite to read, to get involved in forums, to understand how other suppliers are interpreting the information, because it's not always 100% clear. So there's a, you know, you've got to have quite a bit of energy, I think, to bring to the table. I mentioned this before, you're not necessarily in control. Amazon, you know, if they change the rules, you've got to change your way of work. You're not going to get Amazon to say, oh, it's okay, we'll do it your way. It doesn't work like that. So you've got to be able to adapt and be quite agile in your approach. So success is not a given. There are many skills, as I say here, that are required to be successful, but it wouldn't discourage me. It's just, you know what you're getting into.
And indeed, you know, to your point, you start with a small range, use that as your schooling almost, and then you can grow.
Yeah.
You mentioned, which I wasn't aware, that, you know, there's 20, perhaps more now, distribution centers.
Yeah.
Have you ever visited one out of interest?
I haven't, no, but you know what? I've discovered in my journey with Castle Arts that I'm actually really geeky about inventory and warehouse management, and I'd love nothing more than to have a job where I wear a yellow hard hat and I get to see what goes on. Because I think, I mean, I've watched some of the videos of how they process orders, etc., and it's incredibly technical. It's amazing, whoever, you know, came up with that vision. But I haven't, but I'd really love to. I really would love to. Likewise,
there were some adverts, if you remember, early in the year, where Amazon distribution centers were promoting themselves, and you could go online and book. I think the closest one, a tour. I think the closest one here was Liverpool. So this, I thought, out of interest, generally, I'd love to go. And then, of course, the pandemic started, so they've had to stop that. But so yeah, well, if you want me to have a word with the owners of Castle Arts, and I think you should go.
Oh, absolutely. We'll make a road trip. Sounds good.
We'll go together.
Yeah.
So leading on to the however, you know, you made this lovely slide for us, which I know is not meant to put people off or scare them, but it just shows that be patient and understand that if you take on this profession of online traders, there's things you have to learn little by little and move on. Of all the things listed here, I've got two, and then maybe we'll ask our audience to put in a Q&A or the chat, you know, which one, but FBM, FBA, I don't know what that is, and individual or professional accounts. So let's start with that one. What do you mean by individual or professional accounts? So could you have an individual account and sell things, or is there a difference?
Yeah, so it's just, this was obviously all done before the business was already set up and we had a professional account by then. But it's just, I think individual is for somebody who's maybe thinking about starting out quite slowly, doesn't necessarily need access to all of the reporting side of things. So it's kind of like a baby step towards, so if you were particularly scared by Amazon and it was a real, like you just wanted to dip your toes, you'd maybe start with that individual one. I think there are some limits to how many products you can sell. But it's very, very easy to then just switch and upgrade your account to professional. There'll be different fees associated with whichever one, so you'd need to understand the fees and the commitment. But I think you can start from about $25 or something like that per month fee for Amazon. So it's, you know, you'll need you'll obviously have other costs. But yeah, that's just kind of one of the first things that you'd be looking into, just to understand which one's the right fit for your business at that particular time.
And then all, obviously, industries have acronyms, FBM and FBA. I'm sure you use that a lot in meetings.
Oh, yeah, I'm an FBA kind of girl, yeah. So I'm not entirely sure who's in the room or in this virtual room, but some of you might already have your own kind of warehouse or whatever set up. So FBM, stands for Fulfilled by Merchant. So once you know the acronym, it's easy to work out. So essentially means Amazon promotes and does the kind of the order side of things, like takes the order, but you're actually the person responsible for shipping those goods out. FBA stands for Fulfilled by Amazon, which means you send your products into an Amazon distribution warehouse, they distribute it, and you can take control and focus on the sales and the visibility side, and they take care of everything else, the packaging, the issuing. So you take advantage of things like Prime, which you wouldn't have under FBM. So that's different, and it will depend on your business setup. But again, different fees, so you'd probably have to do a little bit of working out which one suited your business at the particular time that you decided to launch.
So forgive me, I understand clearly you are then, fulfilling by the merchant. Is that your version, Castle Arts, or Amazon?
We're FBA. Ours is all in Amazon, yeah.
And therefore, clearly, because you are in different territories, you'll have your stock in different countries around the world in different distribution centers.
Yeah, so if you're FBA, then they'll do all the distribution. They do that anyway because of their Prime offer particularly. So if you can imagine, UK, you can get your head around it quite quickly. But certainly when you think about the likes of the size of the United States, Amazon they'll have an algorithm that works out your sales and where your sales are going. And they'll work out and transfer a proportion of your goods. So we ship into one Amazon warehouse, and Amazon will then redistribute our stock out to their various distribution centers in order to obviously meet things like their Prime offer to their customers, so next day deliveries and things like that. So, and it's the same principle, but on a smaller scale in the United Kingdom.
And do you get like an alert when stock starts to, you probably track them daily, I would imagine, so you know when to replenish the stocks?
Yeah, so we don't now, because of our how we've grown, we use some of the reporting from Amazon, but we have our own processes and systems that we've tailored for our business needs. So typically we track our inventory at least once a week and our sales. But I think my colleague who I handed over, because I've moved on again from inventory management. I set that up and all the processes, and I've gone in a slightly different direction again. So my colleague, I think, has got an awful lot of grey hairs after COVID, or during this COVID-19 situation, just based on the logistical challenges and monitoring stock. So it's been a tricky time.
I bet. So listen, time is against us. I need to move on to maybe what I'm. Certainly, I hope that the audience is in mind, because I did lead you to kind of share this dashboard. You say you've become a bit of a geek about things, but I'd like to know what I can do as a trader. So on screen, there's as much as you could share with me is perhaps something you see regularly. So what can we do as a trader on Amazon?
Well, you can do an awful lot. You don't necessarily have to be doing it all from day one. You'll find that there'll be key areas that you go into once you've worked out what your main reports are. Obviously you can't click this, it's not live, but if you were to click on reports, which is just next to the number 4, there'd be all sorts of different reports that you can look at. So your sales reports, inventory reports, etc. I think it can be a little bit overwhelming, but I think just stick with it, and you'll find the key reports that are the most meaningful to you at the time. So this was just to give you an idea of what it looks like. Interestingly, I actually I've realized in preparing this for you, Pascal, that I actually don't spend an awful lot of time in the Amazon platform anymore, because of the change in my role. However, this just sort of shows you a snapshot of the information that you can see. It's kind of widget based, so you can change this to show what information is important to you. So I kind of oversee the customer service team, so I'm still interested to make sure that our buyer messages are meeting the Amazon SLA. But again, we have our own SLA, so something to be prepared for is if a customer contacts you regarding one of your products, Amazon give you a maximum of 24 hours to reply to that. So we actually challenge our team to hit 12 hours. But originally, this was what I was doing when I first joined the business, making sure that all the customers were being responded to. And Amazon do track those metrics. So it is something that you've got to be aware of, because, you can get a little red flag now and again, and that's a bad day when you've got a red flag from Amazon. It kind of can throw you into a bit of a spin, but it's recoverable. You just have to be aware that they do obviously monitor these things. So see, we've got a case log there. So sometimes if you come up against an issue, you'll have to raise a case with Amazon. That's a whole fun experience that, I look forward to hearing what your delegates make of it should they move forwards. But you need to strap yourself in when you start chatting to Amazon. It's not always straightforward. So yeah.
Can I ask quickly about number 5?
Yes.
So this is where essentially you go UK, USA, and all of the territories, and then obviously the view changes.
Yeah, so all you'll see is the same information, but it will just be for argument's sake, your Germany dashboard or whatever. So you can see here as a good example in the box mark number 2, you can see there are 3 messages, but in the box number 3, there's only 2. And that's because there would have been a message sitting in one of the other accounts. So the way that it's organized is that under our this is our UK and EU. So it's actually all of our European listings. We have a different login for the USA side of things. So we navigate between 2 different dashboards, and within that dashboard, you can go in and you can open up your German account and then reply to, let's say, a message from a German customer.
Correct. Can I ask, out of interest, when you have a listing on the German version of Amazon, is the content in German, and do you have to communicate in German as well?
Yeah. So part of Amazon's making it easy for you to sell in other countries is that they have a program called Pan EU, which if you sign up for that, they'll automatically duplicate your listings and they will translate them into the common language of the platform of the marketplace you're moving into. That said, it's not always the best method. We've discovered that we take ownership of our translations ourselves and use a professional translation service because of things like colloquialism and culture. If you really want to stand out and speak to that audience, again, it's that research word. It's making sure that you actually get that phrasing right. And it can also impact your keywords because of translation, etc. Your keywords in the UK might not necessarily be the same keywords that you would want to use in Germany or France or Spain.
This actually brings back memory. When I first met the owners of Castle Arts, I think they had started in France and they were asking me to check the text.
Right.
I'm sure they promised a few pencils in return, but I never got anything.
I'll sort you out.
Thank you very much. So let's move on then to perhaps what is interesting is this listing thing. I'm pleased actually you chose that one because I wanted to ask. You clearly have the court jester on the pack of 3D fabric paints. Was anyone in the office the inspiration for the jester?
I couldn't possibly disclose such information. No, I think it was picked. I think it was picked because of its. This is a product that a younger audience tend to respond to. Believe it or not, you can make your own squishies if you use fabric paint. They need to make a squishy. You have to, if you're buying like a blank one or whatever, you need a paint with elasticity in it in order to expand with the squishy. So these have become quite popular because people are youngsters are looking to create their own. So we just thought that had a fun vibe for a slightly younger audience.
Excellent. So can you take us through how you would approach a listing? We know them as shoppers, but do you have a different mindset when you're the trader?
Yeah, well, again, it's always changing in Amazon, but that number 1, your main image, and your 6 further product shots, that is your, we spend a lot of time thinking about the quality of those images, how they're set up, adhering to Amazon guidelines. So for example, you will get into trouble if you try to put some kind of lifestyle vibe on your first image, actually any image, but typically if you try to put anything other than a clean white background and a clear product shot, you can get into trouble with Amazon because they don't want you to, mislead their customers in any way about the contents of what they're purchasing. So we do a lot of split testing between images to see which one converts better. So that takes a long period of time to work out what converts best. So we spend a lot. So each element, to be fair, has a lot of thought that goes into it. Number 2, the product title. You need to be thinking about almost search engine optimization on this, keywords, what works, but not just what works, but what actually translates into profitable sales. So some keywords may seem to work, but you need to delve that little bit deeper and make sure that you're actually paying for something that's actually giving you a return. Again, number 3, if you move on to number 3, it's obviously, as consumers will all understand, that that star rating is hugely important on Amazon. We would be concerned if any of our products were below a 4 or 4.5 star rating. Obviously, we aim for 5. But there's a lot goes on behind the scenes with the customer service team to make sure we drive those reviews. So we have processes in place, follow-up emails, etc., that have been carefully thought through. And it has to be said, at Amazon are making it harder and harder for sellers to contact their customers directly. So you have to, you know, that they're almost very vanilla now. What we say to our customers, there's very little, you can't put any sales language in your follow-up emails at all. So it's quite tricky. So that's definitely something that you'd be doing some research on. Price and promotion, obviously, that's something that we look at carefully and we monitor performance, profit levels, margins, etc. And then obviously the copy, the sales copy, there's a lot goes into that as well, thinking about what really makes us stand out and makes this product unique.
Can I ask about the Amazon's choice? And you've got a little label, which I will say does influence me as a shopper. If I recently had to get up, you know, the studio with lights and microphones and so on to transform, you know, the spare bedroom into office space. And there's so much to choose from, and I had some ideas what I wanted, but I have to say that when I saw the Amazon's choice, I can see my eyes and my kind of willingness to give it a go if it's in a non-brand or supplier. How do you earn the right to have that little label?
Well, again, it's something that's given automatically by Amazon, and this is to do with the metrics that they're testing. So essentially, it'll be about being a top seller. So we'll be probably if not the top seller, near the top seller for this particular product. And also they'll also take into consideration things like your in-stock time for inventory. So there's more to it, but you're absolutely right. That Amazon's choice flag will definitely boost conversion. It could be the difference between someone purchasing and not purchasing. So we definitely go after these as a strategy, and so that's why, you know, we've got a dedicated inventory team, and we've obviously got our customer service team carry out daily listing health checks on all of our listings. So if you think we've got 30 products in five countries, every single one of those is checked for quality, consistency, hijackers, anything that might go odd. Sometimes you can see things like the images disappear or they go to a previous order. That could impact our sales considerably. So there's a big mechanism behind the scenes.
Final thing I wanted to touch on then, it was that description thing. So on one hand, as a shopper, I can see, you know, the minimalistic environment of Amazon, it's clean and so on. But sometimes I feel the description just leaves me, I feel shortchanged. It's either too brief or it's a bit busy, whatever. But I can detect that it's because the interface has limitations as well. It's not as if you could run your own web page on your own website, which is probably the attraction for you guys to go ahead with your own platform. Yeah,
so there's different, you can scroll down the listing. So there's different types of sales copy. So what I've shown you there is just a little bit of behind the scenes where you would work through all of these tabs and vital information. If you were setting up a listing, you would complete your vital information, your variations. That's if you want to sell 2 products on the same listing. So for example, we've got our 12mm acrylic paints come in a choice of either 12 or 24. So they're on the same listing and customers can choose between whichever one they prefer. So that's a variation. And then offer is your price. So description, this would just give you a little idea. So this is the bullet points that you saw at the top of the earlier screenshot, but further down you'd have more of a narrative. So essentially that's addressing customers who make quick decisions, just want bullet point information and they're happy to stick it in their cart. Or you might have a customer who actually wants to know a little bit more about what that product does specifically. So there's 2 different types of copy on there. And you can also use this A+ program to make it look a lot more branded, a little bit more like a high-end interface for customers, and that's something that we're working on as well.
Super. I've got one final question for you, and then we'll invite Danielle back for both an open Q&A with our guests as well today. What else is available on Amazon to two things help you market, the listings or your presence? So are there some additional features that even some that you don't use necessarily? And what is possible, back to what I was asking Danielle, what is possible for you to build that mailing list, if at all possible, using Amazon? Because ultimately, in both those options today, Etsy, Amazon Marketplace, but also the others, you are a tenant, you've got a landlord who has enormous amount of control, but the future of the business is down to the direct relationship with the customers. So what marketing features do you have, and what can you do to build a mailing list?
So the mailing list is definitely a difficult one. The only workaround that you can't mention your website or anything like that in copy or in any emails that you have going out to the customer. So it's almost a dead end on that side of things. The only thing that Amazon currently, I say currently because rules change, permit is for you to put a small insert in your actual product. Okay. So when it gets to the customer, they can then choose whether or not they want to subscribe directly with you or whatever, however you deal with that from a marketing point of view. So that's definitely a challenge. That's not easy. If you're looking for quick access to your customer data, then Amazon's not the place, because they simply won't give it. That's their collateral. In terms of promoting yourself, there's very complicated processes for advertising and sponsored ads. So when we looked at the listing a little bit earlier, at the top there was a sponsored ad. So you would typically be trying to invest a little bit of money in your keywords to make your products show up when the consumer types those keywords. You'll be competing with other similar, so we'll compete with people who also sell similar products for those same keywords. But then you're looking at building up your organic reach as well at the same time. So it's a double-handed approach. And that organic is through, obviously, your sales, your copy, your keywords. All of those strategies help you to be more visible profitably.
Thank you very much. Okay, so we're going to kind of close to this session with a bit of an open Q&A. So our friends are with us. I'm looking at the list, from Alison Gargett all the way to Susan Soffit. Feel free to add questions into the Q&A section. You'll see the speech bubbles at the bottom of the Zoom. And Danielle, if she's still with us, perhaps she's had to quickly say to either the business or her little boy, but if you're happy to join us back, excellent. I'm doing the Zoom wave again. So let me start with one question, then we'll get a question from our audience. When you look back at to this topic, which is using a shopping platform to either kickstart an online business or to supplement, obviously things, are there top three things that you think, well, if that was to be your journey, or if you were to start again, these are the three things I would do maybe now or differently? So if I start with you, Danielle, taking full advantage of a shopping platform like Etsy, three things that come to mind.
I think really learning how it works from the start. It's a steep learning curve, but now, if I could ask me, I could give myself some really good top tips to make the listings the best they could be from the beginning. So photography, decent product images would definitely be right up there. But then the Etsy equivalent of SEO. So looking at the titles, the description, and using your tags. So you get 13 tags and making the most of them using long tail keywords. I don't know if that's something you've ever covered in one of these training sessions, but you'll find a lot of people selling will just say pen, blue pen, shiny pen, rather than thinking about what people are actually searching for. So I think that's a real priority. I don't know how many that is. Is that 3?
That probably is, yeah, don't worry. And I think for me, it's back to this idea of, I have a lot of sympathy for somebody who would start a business based on products that they're passionate about, and having to then add additional skills, which are not particularly exciting, are granted, someone could be forgiven to think, Pascal, when I started my business, I had little interest in SEO, or I didn't want to become a photographer, but there we are. These are what supplement is. What about you, Morag, then, with your Amazon perspective? As the top 3 things that you think, yeah, with hindsight, maybe these would have been helpful?
There is so much. I'm sitting here thinking, I don't know how I'm going to answer this question. I knew you were going to stump me. I don't know whether or not our journey on Amazon has been very organic. I can honestly say, hands up, there's not a day when I was heavily involved in the Amazon platform that I didn't learn something. And I just don't know. Maybe it would just be to be able to invent something, to be able to just take what's in my head and take what's in my colleague's head and just put it into somebody else's. But unfortunately with Amazon, I think it's about rolling your sleeves up, appreciating and accepting that you're going to have to just get your head around certain things. And actually on the other side of it, there's a lot of benefit from that. Because if you were ever to subcontract or bring in an employee to do something, we all know as business owners, you make a much better manager or colleague if you kind of get it. You don't have to be a specialist anymore, but you kind of get it and you know what they're saying, and you can steer your business to growth. So whilst it's a bit painful, I would just say, suck it up. It's gonna come good in the end if you grow.
Thank you very much. So again, feel free to add questions in the chat or Q&A session, but I wanted to actually get your reaction about the news about Facebook launching Facebook shops at the back of the pandemic. They were saying, we're going to do what we can to support retailers. Is that something that you're giving some thoughts to, or you feel that your online ecosystem is set? No need to add more complication by having yet another outlet. So if I start with you, Danielle, about Facebook shops.
Well, I've had a Facebook shop for at least 2 years. I don't know when I first set it up, when I first linked it to my website. So I'm not entirely sure what's different in their new announcement. I don't know if it's that you're going to be sort of totally more standalone, but to be honest, I've already got it. Not many people use it. If anything, it just drives the traffic to my website. So I think it's it would be good, but we'd have to train consumers to use it.
Yeah, I mean, the promises would be that full integration with Messenger, WhatsApp, you name it, and whereby you don't have to have all of your stock, but you can have back to your term earlier, Danielle, curated stock. And they made the announcement, what was it? Yeah, late April, early June, I think. And US to start with, and then it gets to roll out. What about you, Morag? Facebook shops, yeah or nay?
Well, the jury's out. You don't rule anything out, do you? That's not on my radar, to be perfectly honest. We're slow on social media, to be honest. We've been so knee deep in Amazon that we're just kind of getting our act together with the whole social media thing. But that obviously ties in with our move to to address this fact that Amazon does kind of retain all of your customer data. So we are looking at our own B2C channels, and of course we're tying in social media online marketing with that. So I would just be, again, doing that research, seeing and watching to see what that might do in terms of improving a customer's relationship with us as a business.
For me, the one thing that I try and put forward is this idea of, whilst this is online and whilst there's an element of convenience, you've got to really be present. And for some of us and people in the room today, it may well be that there isn't a physical destination to go to, but it remains that the feeling of being looked after, it has to be kind of very real for people. And are you sometimes worried that those platforms will create more of a disconnect, and you've got to work doubly hard so that people really understand that you care about them, that you care about the product, and you work hard about the business? Because everything's becoming very mechanical, very fluid, and very, sometimes people can just go, I buy it now and forget all about it. And I've heard people saying, I've forgotten I'd ordered it. So there's sometimes a bit of a disconnect. Are you sometimes worried that you taking pride in what you do, the platforms that you're using to grow your business, sometimes get in the way of that communication?
Who do you want to go first?
I'll start with Morag, just for a change.
Oh, haha. Yeah, well, I think every business has got to, they've got to try and bring their products to life. And we're very fortunate that we have a very obvious brand personality. So we can, we'll certainly be making sure that every contact point we have with our customers, be it directly when we're selling to them or when we're supporting them afterwards, you know, kind of our post-email purchase sequence, that we'll be reinforcing who we are as a brand. And obviously you can do that now in so many ways with video content. You can be much more visible and show yourselves to your customers. So I just think it doesn't concern me. I think it's just inbuilt into the way that we think about our business. We would always be looking at ways to make that connection with our customers. As I said, ours is about a journey. We're no longer, we probably were in the very beginning, if I'm honest, about selling a product. But our journey's taken us somewhere entirely different. We're very interested moving forwards about the connections between art, being artistic, and the well-being benefits around that. So there's a lot to say to our customers, and we'll continue to say it regardless of the platforms.
Danielle?
I think that's been a real strength for me because it is just me. So every message, every email that's answered, it comes from me. So my customers do message me by name, usually. I have had a few addressed to Rowan, but he's not up to answering them just yet. Yeah, so I have actually had to take a little bit of a step back from finding that I was answering messages 24 hours a day and I was never switching off from my phone. And I've actually switched on an autoresponder that just says, have a lovely evening, I'll get back to you in the morning, and a little kiss on the end. And actually I get lovely responses to that saying, oh yeah, you have a nice evening too. And, you know, people seem really happy to, you know, wait a little bit. But in general, I try and respond as much, you know, as quickly as possible and as personally as possible. And I've done a few sort of Instagram takeovers with other brands recently where I've done sort of videos for them and things like that. And I've had great response to those. And I did a video tour of the new office, and that I received fantastic response. People were just loving it. So I think that, you know, being personal and being a big part of your business is a strength of a smaller business, that, you know, people do get to know who they're talking to and, you know, who is the face behind it.
Yeah, that's smashing. Well, listen, can I, on behalf of the organisers, Durham Bid, Digital Drive Durham and Business Durham, thank you for dedicating some of your time. I know that you are very busy. So Morag and Danielle, big thank you for your time this morning. It's been so much more interesting to talk to the actual practitioners about those platforms where we are, session 1 of 4, reflecting on whether or not being part of a shopping platform can support someone's ambition to have more interaction online.